Hey everybody, and welcome to The Plug. Today we're sitting down with Alex Chin and PipChick to talk about the DOTY Awards. For those of you who aren't familiar, the DOTYs are presented by Portfolio 52 in partnership with UnitedCardists. It is an annual deck competition to highlight the best decks of the previous year. So this year, obviously, we're looking at all decks in client hands, customer hands for 2020. So that'll include things that may have actually run earlier than 2020, but weren't fulfilled until the 2020 period. So guys, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello, thank you for having us.
No, thank you so much for coming on. We're really excited about it. I think the DOTYs are one of the most exciting parts of the playing card year. I think throughout the year, you'll always see people say, hey, this is definitely deck of the year. Ooh, I can't wait to see how this plays out in the DOTYs. And I think we're finally there. So a lot of people are going to either be heartbroken or satisfied with what the outcomes are going to be here.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I'm just just like out the gate, I'm really happy that we're even here and having done this. I think Pip can definitely chime in about this, but it's like this almost didn't happen this year. It's just like every year this is quite a bit of work, and this is the first year Portfolio 52 is being involved. But I think in general, having that open access for people in the community to be able to vote at an easier basis really helped, I think, make this work. Yeah.
I can't even imagine how much work it is. I mean, doing a giveaway, just one giveaway alone is a lot of work. Never mind putting a bunch of, nominations together and, working with multiple people, figuring out, what's going up there, getting the website together. It's just a lot to manage. I can't even imagine.
I mean, as Alex said, the whole organization of this event really is like all year long, because we have to keep track of so many projects all at once, and not only just see what projects are happening at the moment, but after the after the project is over, we have to track fulfillments. And again, even if it was a project that perhaps ran in 2019, 2018, 2017, even earlier, if it didn't fulfill and those decks didn't get into backers' hands until this year, then those are the decks that we're really interested in. Those are the ones that are going to be eligible for this year's event. So it really is like all year long organization, and it's a lot. It's a lot. We estimate around about 450 different new releases, and that's not counting different editions or variants within a series. Nice. So it's a lot.
Definitely a lot of record keeping there. And it blows my mind because Steve and I sit there and we look at, Kickstarter obviously every week, but we're thankfully not keeping much track of it beyond that. So it's like, oh yeah, there were 20 decks last week, but in 3 weeks, I couldn't tell you how many decks there were, could have been, and all that stuff. It's very fleeting for us. So to be able to actually keep record of all that is really almost like a full-time gig there.
That's for damn sure.
Yeah, if this ends up happening again next year, which I'm hoping will be the case, I think really we're going to rely more on having a lot of automated system in which everyone sort of gets a voice to nominate. Because I think what we found actually this year, and again, this is my first year sort of participating, but sort of being able to see how participation's occurring, it's a lot of people asking, and especially in the feedback, it's like, well, why weren't we able to nominate? And I think the biggest thing, and I love UC, but some of the barriers to have people nominate that wouldn't normally know about it are still there. And so I think if we made it easier just by hey, every deck page has a nominate button 2 months beforehand. Yeah. And so anyone that even uses, I think most people use P52 just to track their collection, but anyone that's just oh, hey, it's nomination time. I want to NDO or the Butterflies or Luke Wade's deck and just nominate. And then once it comes time to present, we can say, hey, here are the ones that made the cut. Here are the ones that didn't. Here are the reasons why. And so everyone's on board. And I think that's really what we want, because I think one of the tragic stories is a non-poker deck The Titanic Tarot deck, fantastic deck. And again, we jumped in very late, past the nomination point before we started, but it was just like, why wasn't that nominated? I was like, that's a fair point. No one nominated it, and now it's only now that like it's with that public face of like, well, these P52 users are coming in and be like, well, that should have been on there. It's like, I'm so sorry. Next year, like we'll be more involved.
This event, we really try to make it as inclusive as possible. So there's, I mean, even if you're more of a cardist or more of a magician, or if you like tarot decks, like there's something for everyone. And unfortunately, at the moment, a lot of the community, the playing card community, is really focused on poker decks. So we would really love to invite those that are interested into non-poker or tarot to come on board so that they can participate too, because we have a category. We want to hear what you think. We want to hear you think, what decks do you know? Because that's not something that I collect, or I don't collect a lot of, and I think most of the community, the playing card community, doesn't. And this year we saw some designers, for example, Lorenzo, he put out his first tarot deck, which was phenomenal. And so I think a lot of people are just starting to get their feet wet just to see like, oh, there's a whole nother world that's non-poker. And that's really exciting. It's just that unfortunately, this deck was overlooked. And it is a shame.
Now, how does the nomination process work? Or how did it work this year? How did the nominees kind of come in?
So as I said, we keep track of a lot of decks, and all of them of which are those decks that are eligible coming into backers' hands from like Kickstarters or retailers or other alternative sources. And then we have like a master list, as well as kind of another list on Portfolio 52 with decks. And we kind of give that out to the community and say, okay, from this list, it's up to you. Which decks do you feel should be nominated, and for which categories? So it is quite tedious, and for those that are really passionate and want to be involved, they get involved right from the beginning, and we are so grateful for that. We are appreciative for that participation, and it's fantastic. But as I said, the process does need to be improved, and we've already started talking about it for next year, and we're excited to roll out maybe a new feature, so stay tuned for that.
Nice.
I think, being the first year, you're always gonna, find things that you want to change, alter, just to, better it for, the next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things where it's just like, Pip has just been doing so much work into really building and starting this. And at a certain point, there's just like, you're limited ability to scale with certain tools at hand. And so we were just happy to partner up and sort of figure out, all right, where can we take off a lot of that burden? So like all this like master lists we're talking about and tracking everything that's happened throughout the year. In theory, if we start getting people more diligent with their deck page entries for P52, we can literally just auto sort it with one click for everything that came out in 2020, and then see what's eligible, clean up a few things, and then just give it out to the community and be like, hey, what do you want to nominate? We do have to curtail a few like long tails that might occur when everyone starts nominating everything. I don't think that was a problem for this year, but I can absolutely see that as we begin to scale for if we do this next year. And I think there's actually a really fun thing called the blacklist for movies, where they attach people with screenwriters and stuff like that. And basically there's essentially a minimum threshold of nominations per deck just to show up. So it's not like top 20 ever. And like if you only got one nomination versus 500 nominations, it's just the fixed top 20. It's a very interesting way. It's just like you have to reach a minimum threshold of 10 nominations. And as long as you reach a 10, that category can be 100, right, or it could be like 3. And it's just like, as long as there's enough overlap to show that's like there's at least a decent enough interest versus just one outlier. And
I think that'll make it so you don't have random decks that someone voted for themselves.
Oh yeah, that is actually
not even.
We get that all the time. People who are first-time deck creators, or they just it's a single deck and they want to nominate themselves. And when you're looking at the competition, we really want the integrity of this event to maintain as something that people, it's reputable and it's in the community, and we don't want to close the door on anyone's nominations, of course, but at the same time, we really want to showcase the best of the best. And so that's where it's really challenging to find a way where everyone can participate and be involved in the nomination process, but at the same time have it so that it's manageable in a way that when the big vote comes around, there's not a zillion choices of which many of them just can't compete.
And so, as you mentioned, Alex, this was an opportunity for you guys to kind of partner in order to really facilitate more technological and ease of use for the P52 and UC event for the DOTYs this year. Was that something you were excited to be a part of? I know the DOTYs has been something that really has a long-standing reputation within the community. I mean, Pip would be more familiar with how long this has been going on. I myself being relatively newer to the community, this could have been going on for past 10 years for all I know. But is this something that, you being the, main face behind Portfolio 52 were excited to get involved with?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think when Pip approached me, because I actually, funny thing, last year, I think it was like the third year that the DOTYs were out, I actually approached her and was like, hey, this makes sense for P52 to like sort of be integrated. We've had a lot of crossover with UC for a while, and it's just like, when you're just reading the names and you're clicking and you're opening 20, 30 different tabs just to like sort of track, it's a lot of work. We've had feedback in that is saying like, I wasn't even gonna vote this year because it's just so much work, but with this new system, like it was so much fun, and like we hope to do it again. And so I was thrilled at how it turned out. I think I've also been, I think I mentioned this in the previous interview, I've been wanting to do just a lot of singles and showing faces and backs and all that. And I think this was a nice way to sort of introduce this idea that maybe you could browse the site, not just based on Tuck, but on all these other features. So when Pip came out and was like, hey, yeah, do you want to partner? I was like, yeah, like this makes sense. Let's explore it and see what happens. And so far, fingers crossed, things have been pretty good. So
absolutely. I mean, this has been a blessing in disguise, because this year we really 2020 has been a weird year, right? Like, and with COVID, there were so many delays that affected so many projects and so many releases. So, and taking this event on every year is honestly, it's just a massive undertaking. It's so much work. It's an incredible investment of time and effort, and just getting it all organized. It's mind blowing, and people don't understand that it's so much behind the scenes work. And we do it because I love the community. I love decks. This is something I get excited about. I have, of course, my favorite categories, and so often throughout the year, it feels like you back a project, the deck comes, you get it, and then it goes on a shelf, and that's it. And then the next one, and the next, and so this is a really good way to look back on the whole year as a whole, the year as a whole, and kind of reflect of like, okay, which decks really, really outshine the most. And for a lot of people coming into the hobby, so this is a really great opportunity for them to catch up on decks that maybe they missed. And kind of see an overview of some really fantastic work that's been released.
Yeah, sure. I think it'd be sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and like I said, 2 months ago, we honestly weren't even sure if this event was even going to be possible. So we are incredibly grateful for all of Alex's work and enthusiasm and passion to want to make this happen. So.
But honestly, like I think this is just like, it's like you two, Tyler and Steve, it's just like when you see the amount of effort being put in, it's like, well, I gotta match that effort. Like, so it's just like you're just seeing like, Pip's doing all this tracking. You're just like, okay, like I'm gonna like let's just spend all this time doing the stories, making sure that we can sort of like tout and help all these designers and give them graphics that they can actually help share, and just like doing all this legwork that I'm hoping like it only comes with the first or second time around, and then eventually you have a rhythm going. But right now it's very much of a growing pain of like, okay, we have to figure out what we need to do, and it's just a lot of work. But like seeing her effort go into it, it's just like I'm definitely gonna match that effort. Putting up that website, it was a lot of work. It was uncomfortably expensive to get that system working, mostly for the user verification of the votes, so you couldn't like duplicate votes and all that. I think that's really what caused the problem. But now that's in place, I can totally see this just even being like midsummer or even once a quarter. Like, let's have like a really fun recap. Kind of what was the fall collection? What were your favorite kings? What were your favorite surprises? Just to get some more engagement. And I think that's something we're starting to see already.
Nice.
Well, and especially if we match that with other events that are going on in the card community. For example, CardistryCon, it didn't happen this past year and it likely won't happen this year. But when CardistryCon happens in the summertime, there are so many amazing cardistry decks that are released. And that's something that we would love to be able to like, feature it, with the DOTYs and kind of make that as like a branched off event for itself to say, okay, what were the best cardistry decks? Like, how fun is that? So.
Yeah. No, without a doubt. And I think, as you kind of mentioned too, Alex, there's a lot of the growing pains that you've had so far getting all this set up for the first time around. I think one of the really cool things though about the DOTYs, and something everyone also looks forward to, and kudos to you on this one, Pip, is the idea that there's always a different theme. Like, I know personally, I was sitting here waiting for the announcements to be like, all right, what's the theme going to be for this year? And it was just mind-blowingly awesome. Yeah.
The graphics, we were talking about this, like the themes are great, but that's like half of the legwork of figuring out how to get these graphics in. And it's just like, she was doing a lot of the thumbnails, I was doing a lot of the headers and like the stories. And it's just like, what can we get away with? What can we actually, is this copyrighted? Can we not do this? And there's like a lot of different things, but I think in general, it's all good fun. And we appreciate that you notice that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it makes it really exciting for sure.
Now, for those of
so
for the
much
people,
to me to hear, because like I invest so much time into doing those, and I really I love coming up with a theme or kind of doing something fun that people can look forward to, and especially for social media, I want it to be big, bold, and bright and graphic, and and this year I don't think you can get any bolder or more graphic. So.
It looks great.
Can you tell us what the theme is all about?
Bold and graphic. You definitely can.
Sorry, Steve, you were saying?
Can you tell us what the theme is about, just for those that don't know?
Yeah, so for this year, I really wanted to work within my wheelhouse of skills that something that I can do, or that I know that I can do. And I told Alex, I really wanted to do bright, colorful, like pop art, inspired by like Roy Lichtenstein's like comic book style. So that was sort of, where the direction that I went into, and I gave him a bunch of reference materials of like, this is sort of the color palette, the style, very bold, graphic, and Alex was like, well, I don't know. And I'm just like, please, let me do this. Please, I can do it. I know I can do it. I can rock it. Let me do it. So.
Nice. Well, yeah, you guys totally did a great job on it. It looks great.
It really does. I was thoroughly impressed with the comic book style of it. It hit the nail on the head with it. So nicely done for sure.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting insight from Pip. It's just like, at the end of the day, you can have your hero shots and your really sexy 12-page at a 45-degree angle, all these different cards. But I mean, like IG at this point, it's almost like that's just like the same language over and over and over. And like, this is a chance to like stand out, be a little bold, see what happens. And then everyone's like, well, this is cards, but it's not cards, and then click it and sort of see what happens. So yeah, like kudos for Pip for leaning into it. I gave her all the trust. She managed it very well.
Thank you so much.
But you know, I'm just utterly thrilled with how the deck of the years turned out for this year, and I think a lot of members as well for both P52 and UC have just really enjoyed it. Obviously, again, we've been saying there are some things we need to fix, and there are growing pains, but in general, for an event that almost didn't happen, I think is a pretty good start.
Yeah, it's definitely come together nicely for sure.
Yeah, we pulled it together in like 2 months. This is like virtual high five, or I guess
but it's because right now we're looking at the numbers. Actually, I'll pull it up. We have like 30% more. We've already breached more votes than last year alone by 30%.
Nice.
And a
almost
good.
The first day, like the first 2 days.
Yeah, it was quite impressive. I think in terms of participation, you have a chance if you're a UC member to just type in the feedback at the bottom, and we've seen about like a quarter of them have been from UC members, and I'm gonna guess as well, just for safety, that half of them just didn't even bother putting in their names as well. But even so, if we double that, like that's about 50% UC members, and 50% are just like people that just didn't know about the community, that were just on Instagram or something. And it's just like, that's really cool that we're reaching people that normally we wouldn't be able to sort of be like, hey, you know, check this out. So awesome. It is neat, and I think this is a nice proof of concept that like this is worth continuing down this road.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know one thing that you know, some people were kind of inquiring about is how do you guys decide who gets nominated for these decks? Like, for instance, you know, I've heard some people say this deck didn't make it, or why didn't this deck make it? You know, can you kind of give us the little breakdown on how that works?
So people.
Go ahead.
No.
Pip. As I said,
sorry.
Really, we rely on the community, and we had an open nominations period between mid-December to mid-January, so roughly 4 weeks, in which we invited members of the community to just submit their nominations based on these master lists of what we've been tracking throughout the whole year. And those that were not eligible, we would kindly, you know, send back a reply to those people that submitted nominations, and we explained, you know, I'm sorry, your nomination was not accepted, and these are the reasons why. And it's really, really specific depending on what the deck is and for what category it is. So, for instance, in 2018, Lorenzo was nominated and won in several categories for his House of the Rising Spade deck, which was phenomenal. In 2019, he released the Room 17 deck, which is a continuation of the same series. It's the same deck, the same cards, but it's in a new tuck. So that deck, the Room 17 variant of the House of the Rising Spade, it qualified only for the tuck category because that was the only part of that deck that was truly new. So this is where, you know, we have to explain a lot of these categories and the rules, and we try to be very consistent and strict about it. Obviously, as I said, we don't want to be closing the door and saying no to everyone for their favorite decks, but at the same time, we don't want that every year the same recolors and the same reprints are getting nominated. So we want to be able to push designers to continue to develop their skills and come out and bring us something new. So,
Makes sense.
And we get a lot of questions, as I said, and it really depends on what the deck is and what the category you're nominating it for, and whether it's eligible and qualifies and meets the criteria for that specific category.
Awesome.
We get a lot of questions for specifically for this year, Cabinetarium from Art of Play. That was in the non-poker category. And a lot of people asked us, they said, well, why is that a non-poker? It's got 52 cards. It's got suits, it's got indices. And again, this is where sometimes it's a little tricky for those that are wondering, it's the non-poker category obviously is a category for tarot or for jazz cards or 36 card decks or anything that you cannot really play poker with. Now with Cabinetarium, it's kind of in a gray area, and how we would determine whether it qualifies for this category is if you were to cover up those corner indices. If you were to cover up those corner indices, would you be able to tell what card that is? And if a majority of the cards you're not able to tell, then we'll put it in the non-poker category.
Okay,
now,
that's interesting.
Cabinetarium, as I said, it is a little bit of a gray area because there were some cards that featured semi-transformation qualities in the design. So I believe it was the Six of Spades, which was a pizza that had pepperoni that in the shape of spades. So, in this specific card, you can infer that this is the Six of Spades. However, a majority of the deck as a whole did not feature those semi-transformative qualities in design, and so therefore makes it very difficult for anyone to be able to tell which card is which if you were to cover up those corner indices.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
I know
that makes a lot of sense.
long-winded answer.
And I think that's good.
Quite a lot and quite a few times, and we just wanted to make it clear for all those people out there, that are wondering what qualifies a deck for non-poker category. Cover up those indices, those corner indices. Tell us if you could tell. Tell us if you could tell what card that is.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that's one of the things that, like you said, you've gotten a lot of questions on that, and one of the things I mentioned to Steve the other day was it would be interesting to see what the categorical breakdowns are, what you really are looking at, even for the simpler ones of best tuck, even some sort of description to kind of break out to everyone oh, these are the things we do look at for this. These are the things kind of you should be looking at as well to kind of have a little bit more standardization across. Seemed really interesting.
Yeah, I think in general, just there's a lot of weird rules in play that will come up, especially when you have a world so full of variance, right? And I think in general, over time, people will begin to learn those rules, and it'll just be oh yeah, it's because of this reason, and eventually the community will start to understand all those tips and tricks. I think one of the things that I didn't even think about that was brought up to me is just shit, yeah, we have to follow this rule. So seasons and national playing card decks, given that I run P52, and if we're managing this contest, really shouldn't have any eligibility for any of these awards. And I was just man, but also
I
it's
agree.
at the end of the day, it's this is all for fun to showcase the work of other people, and I think if people are again having fun, this is an honor to win this, but also let's not kill each other over, over this. So I was just I'll step back and just make sure that people respect this event for all the votes that come out. I think we're also understanding things like voting, biases of categories in the beginning versus the end of the voting process, and in how you're scrolling. So every few days I'm switching up the orders of when the decks appear or the categories appear.
About that, actually, someone messaged us. They said, is the order in which someone is displayed on the screen within a category, does that show that they're doing better or worse within that category in regards to the vote? And I had to explain, no, we're just switching it up. We want to make it as unbiased as possible, and we wanted to have a little fun so that when you do check back, it's a little bit different. So, and maybe some people check back because they voted and then they reconsidered their vote, and they want to, they took another look at that deck and they want to change their vote, and it's things like this. So we do want to keep it fun and as unbiased and as uninfluenced as possible. So that was something that that did come up.
Very cool. And so for anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to vote yet, you can head over to portfolio52.com. The vote screen is right at the top there, so it's really simple and easy there. You can click right there, register an account with Portfolio 52, and that'll give you access to all of the capability to see the nominations for this year and place your votes for what you think are the best decks in a slew of awesome categories. And I think, it's really exciting to see all these nominations and everything coming together. Like I said, this is an exciting time for me within the community, and I hope more people do get involved because it's a fun event.
Yeah, definitely. We look forward to seeing who the winners are. And
I'm already having to start preparing templates for how we're gonna roll that announcement out. I think we're gonna instead of having a single day of all these votes, I think we're gonna pace it a little bit so like throughout the week we will be announcing different categories, along with some infographics for you data nerds out there. Which I personally am one, so I'm pretty excited to show you guys.
Yeah, we definitely love seeing how the vote breaks down, so that'll be really great. And we also have an associated giveaway too, which is super exciting. So people are definitely going to want to stay tuned for more details on that.
Nice.
And that will be after the event. So we're going. We've been working really, really hard, reaching out to potential sponsors to secure some amazing giveaway prizes for people that participate. And this really is an invitation for everyone to get involved. We tried to make it as streamlined and as simple as possible. We really want an event that was conceived and homegrown by the community for the community. So make it as much fun as possible for you guys. So.
And voting is open till the end of the month, so everyone make sure to check that out and don't miss out on this awesome opportunity to have your voice heard in what you think are the best decks for 2020.
Yeah. Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
It was an absolute pleasure, and thank you for providing the insight into this whole process. And we're really excited to see how well it does this year, but hopefully how it does in future years as well with this partnership. Thank you so much, guys, and enjoy the rest of it, guys. Everyone out there, make sure to head to portfolio52.com and vote before the end of the month so your voice can be heard.
Peace.